Hello everyone, Feet here. So I've been lurking the Battle Brothers subreddit recently to see what people are doing differently with their bros and their builds, right? And yesterday we successfully saved a fencer. We did it, boys. Thank you for being there with me. Could not have done it without you. Anyways, today a similar thread has emerged, and I think it perfectly captures what I have been thinking and wondering. That is, hey, why do people go for fatigue neutral so much? Alright, here's the Reddit post. About 13 hours ago, Skyward has pressed the nuclear button and the Battle Brother subreddit blew up. And he said that Battle Brother subreddit, every single build bro, no matter how overqualified. And they just pour on nimble or fat neutral. And that's exactly the situation that we had yesterday, right? And I can understand fat neutral, right? Because that build works. But what I don't understand is nimble. And the nimble build over here isn't the fencer or dagger duelist nimble with dodge, right? These are the plain nimble two-hander and nimble duelist. And that build has a lot of weaknesses. And I don't use it at all because, I mean, I categorize it as a pleb build, right? Basically, doesn't have much in terms of protection. Just go nimble and hope that it protects you. And well, this can work early on for sure. But once archers start to spawn, right, they will see this guy in the front line and they will laser focus on that guy, and 3 arrows and your armor is gone. After that, every single arrow is an injury or is a big chunk of HP. So I don't really build this at all unless I really need a power spike at the right exact moment. My guy just hits level 7 and I'm about to do a hard fight. I need a guy that can stay in the front and hit people with a big weapon and not die, right? That's why I would take nimble and then make him into a pleb two-hander. So maybe in order to deal with the archer problem, you can, cut some of these damage perks and go for anticipation. Because you are nimble, you don't need fatigue that much, right? You can invest in some range defense, and maybe you can take one value dodge, right? Maybe cut those, dodge, anticipation. Yeah, that actually makes sense. All right. He also says, show some love for the fencer in the fat, heavy battle forge bros. And yeah, that's exactly what I thought, right? I don't know who he is, but I feel a deep connection with him already. And a nice meme, by the way. But I'm neither here for the memes, nor am I here for connections. I am here looking for perspectives, right? So scrolling down, and I saw Scene says, nimble builds can clear the map without a lot of resources very early on, if you know what you're doing, right? And I'm like, wow, that is true. Now, nimble is definitely less tanky than Battleforge, but it will still allow you to survive damage, just not as much as Battleforge, right? And it comes online much faster. So if you're good at the game, you can clear the map very early by using good positioning, mitigating damage, allocating damage at the right spot. Basically, if you know what you're doing, you don't need to rely on the tankiness of Battleforge. You can make do with less. And nimble is the fastest way, right? However, the fact that you can do it with less doesn't mean that you have to do it with less. If you can do it with more, why not do it with more, right? More armor, more tankiness, more safe. So unless your priority is to rush the game, you don't need to limit your really good bros to nimble. Me personally, I build lots of nimble early to power through the early stages. But if I find some amazing bro, I will save them for Battleforge. Another interesting comment is from Burning Man. Alright, you can't be overqualified from fat neutral is the build that requires chat potential the most and absolutely necessary in the endgame fights, while Battleforge Berserk, which is a luxury build, accomplishes little over normal nimble Berserk builds. First thing first, you just simply can't use simply can't and absolutely necessary in your argument, or else people will pick it apart, right? I like this a lot. First of all, Battle Forge Berserk is a luxury build. That is true, right? I build a lot of these, and that's why I go for a lot of premium backgrounds, go through a lot of premium recruits to find them. And in order to make this build work, right, you need good HP, good resolve, but you also need a good amount of fatigue. And not every bro can do that. And even the good ones, right, after spreading the stat into about 80 HP before Colossus and about 50 resolve at least, you're not going to have that much stats left to throw into fatigue. So how do you get enough fatigue to go berserk with Battle Forge armor? Well, the answer is good fame armor. They are lighter, they have more durability, and also veteran levels, right? You can expect about 10 veteran levels for your normal run that lasts about 300 days. Yeah, and in order to find those good fame armor, you need time anyway, and you know that time means that you're gonna get some written level in there. So it is definitely a luxury build. And if you try to force it build on some bros that can't do it, you know, you are gonna feel the handicap. Having Battle Forge Berserk with 50 fatigue. I have been there before, and I don't like it, alright? At least I need about 60, 70 fatigue, usable fatigue for my Battle Forge Berserk. So I read somewhere, but I can't find the comment anymore. It basically said that the fatigue neutral build has two variants. One is the play fatigue neutral that just have a bit of attack and defense, but generally have low HP and fatigue and resolve, so that you know you have some decent attack and defense, but you can't spread the stat onto HP, fatigue, and also resolve, right? So the fix is you still wear heavy armor, but instead of pumping stat into 3 categories, you don't pump anything into fatigue, and you put that spare stats into HP and resolve to have a bro that can meet the requirements. And they're still tanky with the battle force. They have decent attack and defense, and they can stay at the front and they can hit people and not die, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. This is my go-to build for the mid game, basically. This is the build for the Oath Takers, Knights, Sellswords, Nobles, especially a Sword Master, when they don't meet the requirements to become a Berserk bro for me. That makes perfect sense. But what Burning Man is saying over here is, well, there's a second variant that is made out of premium bros. Instead of making them into Berserk premium bros, you know, with good attack, good defense, and good HP fatigue resolve all around, you also cut away all the fatigue and you dump them into the HP and resolve even more to get an even tankier, sturdier bros, right? Well, that is actually very compelling. So even for my tankiest bro, full on Battle Forge armor, steel brow, 100 HP with the Hop of Colossus, I still get injured by many things, right? Goblin can still puncture me and injure me. Chosen can still injure me because they got Crippling Strike. Then some other enemies still posing a threat to me. So having more HP would be nice, right? To deal with that. Maybe this chat fatigue neutral variant is gonna have 100 HP before Colossus, and with Colossus he's gonna have 125. Maybe he can reach even 130. Will he fare better against those Chosens and Goblin with injury heavy attacks? I don't know if he will be completely immune to puncture, but he will be very resistant. He will rarely take injury from puncture, but I'm not sure about Chosen though. Like Chosen got Crippling Strikes, and they don't care how much HP you have really, you're gonna get injured nonetheless. But you will get injured less, and you will get less severe injuries. But what you are trading off is, you're trading off the damage, right? Sometimes hitting once per turn is not enough. Also, I think that late game bros, right? Premium bros, they survive with their defense. The premiums bros survive with defense, right? Not with their HP. They just need to have enough HP so they don't suddenly break their leg from an arrow. 90 to 100 HP for me is good enough. With a good armor, with fur padding, with steel brow, I am tanky enough to survive a couple hits, couple big hits. And if you have more HP, right? If you instead of having 90 to 100, you have maybe 120, 130, you're gonna survive an extra hit perhaps. I'm not sure if that will help you that much. And a lot of the time I find that it's better to try and kill the enemy faster than try to tank the damage. So for the hammer guy, right, he's tanking the flank. Would I prefer to have a bit more HP, a bit more resolve, so I can just sit there and tank some hits? Or do I prefer to have a larger fatigue pool so I can maybe round swing once or twice before running out of stamina to defend myself? I would rather have the fatigue. Thing is, this hammer build, right, is actually very hard to find. So because he's tanking the flank, he needs more HP and resolve than usual already. Yet he still needs a good amount of fatigue so that he can do a couple AoE, do a couple Berserk. I have tried to solve this problem before by going for the dodge two-hand build. Right, this build allowed me to make a bro with higher defense by investing more point into dodge. This is a fatigue neutral build that just get good enough HP, get good enough resolve, but has extra defense instead of more fatigue, right? So I have built a dodge hammer boy before and tanked the flank with him. And I quite like that. The extra defense definitely helped. So the chat fatigue neutral build, right, that has extra HP is basically the other side of the Battleforge dodge coin, right? Instead of getting more defense, we get even more HP in there. Though I still prefer to build a Berserk hammer if I have a good enough bro for my flank. But if I don't, right, I have the option to go dodge, Battleforge, but if the guy doesn't have, a lot of potential in initiative, and he can't really reach the point of becoming a Berserk hammer, investing even more into HP and resolve and just hope that he can tank the flank is also not a bad idea. So I actually really like this. So making premium bros into chat fatigue neutral, maybe not. However, making bros that are just a bit short of the Battleforge Berserk into a giga high HP flank tanker it's not a bad idea. However, a bro that just like a little bit of fatigue, right, to be full on Battleforge, we can go Nimble Forge now, right? Not for the flank tanker. This build is definitely less tanky than full on Battleforge with fur padding. It's tanky enough, and it's good for the damage dealer builds. You go Nimble instead of Steel Brow, and you go lighter, good fame armor, so you have more fatigue to play with and deal your damage. By the way, we talked about this Nimble Berserk build earlier, right? It has the archer weakness, but I think we can try to fix it with a couple perks and a couple range defense perhaps, or just starting them out in the backline like I usually do. Okay, so that settles a couple things for me, right, about Fat Neutral. Fat Neutral is a good mid-game build for me. It can be used to really make a bro more tanky to help with the flank. Another topic that I find very interesting is crossbow versus bows, right? So some people use crossbow a lot while others prefer bows, right? Me, I am on the archer bower camp. But I fully understand, right? The thing about crossbow is that they have more armor pen. That means they can deal more HP damage through more armor. The sweet spot for the crossbow is about 150 to 250 armor. That's why it can punch through really well and still do a lot of damage while the bow is struggling. Keep in mind though, if enemy has no armor, then the armor pen and the armor damage doesn't do anything. When they have no armor, then the raw damage stat is all that matters. And if they have too much armor, like say 400 to 500, then even the crossbow can't punch through. I explained the damage mechanic in Battle Brother in my build video. I will link it over there. Basically, right, crossbow deals more damage against medium armor, while the bow do better against low armor and unarmored enemies. And the bow has more raw damage, right, against unarmored because they shoot twice per turn. They deal about the same amount of damage. They both have about 50 to 70. But the bow can shoot twice per turn. The crossbow, right, normal crossbow has 50% armor pen, but the mastery gives 25% more, I think. That becomes 75, so that's quite strong. Okay, it can punch through lots of armor. But against no armor, then it's weaker than the bow. And against high armor, they are about the same, right? The bow might even do a tiny bit better because they can stretch through armor faster, and once armor is gone, they do more damage. The crossbow is gonna struggle with the high armor for a little bit. Once the high armor is lowered down to about medium, then it can start punching through, right? And both bows and crossbow, right? If you're dealing with high armor enemy, you should let some other bros deal with the armor first, right? Scratch it away first to your sweet spot before you start shooting them. The bows can somewhat bypass its weakness by using thrower, a duelist, right? Basically, thrower duelist is almost just like a crossbow but much lower range. It can punch through a lot of armor too. So if you use bow and thrower, then you can have high range, high damage against low and unarmored enemies, and close range, high armor piercing against medium armor enemies. Crossbow is basically a javelin launcher for longer range, right? So you can launch javelins at enemy from further away, piercing through their armor. And when they go closer, you can also pull out javelin and chuck. So for that, I definitely prefer the bow more. It can shoot down a lot of enemies from afar, namely Hexen. Hexen without bow is a pain. Against Unholds with no armor, bow is better. Against Goblin, it can snipe them from further, though the crossbow can one-shot them better. Also, you can snipe down enemies, marksmen, a nomad, archer from afar too, those pesky annoying things. You know, you can walk at them and slap them too, or you can walk closer and shoot them with the crossbow too, but I just prefer to just stay back and just shoot them down, right? An upside of the crossbow is that it can also be used with a gun, right? If you're a crossbowman, then you are also a gunner. And guns are quite fun in some battle. The bow can also use the gun. Basically, you begin the fight with the gun equipped, and then first turn you put the gun in your backpack, pull out your normal bow, and when the enemies come close and line up perfectly, you pull out your hand cannon and you line up the shot and you shoot only once, right? You can't really reload it. So you use the gun as a big javelin basically. While the crossbow, they can swap between guns and crossbow depending on the fight. By the way, right, javelins are very good against medium armor enemies like Chosen, any humans, right? But it's not that great against unarmored enemies. It has so much armor piercing, but it doesn't have that much base damage. Well, it do have some extra base damage from the mastery, but it's not as much as the bow, right? So against unarmored enemies, please just shoot with the bow, right? If you have it, and save some ammunition. So yeah, for me, the bow just covers long range, close range, low armor, medium armor. Even high armor, I think, is still a bit better than the crossbow too. Also, it has more DPS, right? It can shoot twice per turn with the same damage. So if you have other bows that can shred through the armor for you, the bow will do more damage, right? Let's say your hammer bow destroyed the orc warrior armor. Now, your bowman can do more damage to that unarmored orc warriors compared to the crossbows. Even in fights where, you know, let's say you're fighting just a plethora of Chosen and nothing else. All the Chosen are good target for the crossbow. Chosen armor range from 140 to 230, I think. That is the sweet spot from the crossbow, right? So the crossbow can start shooting them from afar, and you have maybe 2 or 3 crossbowmen. You probably shoot down 3-4 Chosen before they get to you, which is quite nice, right? And in those fights, right, the bow doesn't really have a target. But in orc fight, the bow can maybe shoot orc young and orc berserkers, shoot down some, you know, archers, things like that from afar. But in the Chosen fight, the bow doesn't really have a good target early on. Once they get close, you can pull out the javelins. Once the armor are gone, the bow can do good damage. But when the fight begins, they don't really have a good target. They can still try to shoot at the lowest armor Chosen, the one with the 140, but it's gonna take a couple arrows at first. So in those fights, the bow is maybe worse. But yeah, they all have up and down sides, right? The crossbow is a terrific tool to get through the early mid game. By the way, if you want a free name crossbow, right, try to buy a Witch Hunter early on. He has an event that can get you a free fame crossbow. Anyway, that's my take on this topic. I really like seeing new perspective, new ways to play the game. And yeah, I think fat neutral has a place in the game for sure. Nimble too, and both in Crossbow also. So which camp are you on? Do you like fatigue neutral or do you like battle forge berserk? Do you prefer bow or crossbow or something else? Put your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to read that. Anyway, that's what I want to talk about today. Till next video, video out. See ya.